This is Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. First, though, our top stories. Israel has continued its strikes in Lebanon with what's been described as the most intense bombardment since the conflict escalated. It comes ahead of the first anniversary of Hamas's attack on Israel, in which more than 1,200 people were killed and over 250 taken hostage. And Sue Gray has resigned as Downing Street Chief of Staff just 3 months after Labour won the election. Hello there. You're watching the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the journalist and author Christina Patterson and writer and broadcaster Esther Kreku. Welcome both. So let's see what is on some of those front pages. Well, the resignation of Sue Gray as Sir Keir Starmer's Chief of Staff is top story in the Financial Times. The paper says that she was forced out as the PM tries to get a grip on his problems in Downing Street. The Eye too says she's fallen victim to a Downing Street power struggle. The Express says she's leaving what the paper describes as Starmer's sinking ship. The Telegraph says the PM wielded the knife after a wave of infighting and leaks. The Metro is in full-on pun mode with this headline asking the question, a bad Gray at the office, Keir? In the Mail, Tory leadership candidate Kemi Badenoch calls the situation a farce and proof that the PM lacks judgment. And then to the Middle East conflict, and on the first anniversary of the Hamas attacks that sparked the current crisis, the Mirror speaks to the mother of one Israeli hostage who says it's now time for peace. And the reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by journalist and author Christina Patterson and writer and broadcaster Esther Kreku. Thank you both so much for being with us. OK, well, let's, in a way, one story is dominating the headlines, as in the main story. But, of course, what's happening in the Middle East is in all the papers as well. Let's start with that. Let's look at the front page of the Mirror. Very strong headline there. It's been a year of hell. Time to find peace. Calls to end killing as Brit mum pleads for hostage daughter. And that's the story that we were mentioning now. Emily Damari, 28, the British Israeli hostage, still being held in Gaza. Christina, it's a year on, which is hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah, I remember sitting here a year ago when we were all absolutely shell-shocked by what had happened, and nobody could have begun to imagine the horrors that have happened in the last year. And this headline, it's been a year of hell, is simply a statement of fact. It has been a year of hell for the families of the hostages who are still going through the agony, those of the families of the hostages who have not yet been returned, like Mandy Damari. And of course, it has been a year of hell in Gaza, and a year of hell seems to be, we don't know how long it's going to be, but now hell has been unleashed in Lebanon as well. I think we must all remember the hostages at this time and the horrific events of the 7th of October when Hamas unleashed hell in Israel. But I'm afraid it does also seem as if the person who has not been thinking very much of the hostages is Benjamin Netanyahu, because he seems to have been focused on other things, and he has given no indication at any point that rescuing the hostages and getting them back safely to their families has been his priority. If that had been his priority, he would have taken a very different course of action, but it clearly hasn't been. And that is another layer of the multi-layered tragedy that we're looking at today.
And over the months, we have, of course, seen many demonstrations in Israel of Israelis, criticising Netanyahu for not prioritising the hostages as they see it. Esther, before coming to you, let's just look at the Telegraph. And there's so front page of the Telegraph, and they have a picture here of Emily Damari, and what they're writing on October 7th, Britain has forgotten one of its own. So again, taking the line about the Israeli-British hostage, the only one still left in Gaza.
Absolutely. I think a year on, everyone hoped we would be in a different place. It doesn't look like things are getting better. It looks like things are getting worse. This conflict seems to be proliferating. Iran is getting bolder. Obviously, this conflict has now spread to Lebanon. And of course, there is no end in sight for what the Gazans are going through, which is actually another thing that Benjamin Netanyahu has drawn criticism of. The IDF don't want to be stuck in Gaza for
and there was another attack in Gaza just today.
Of course, for the foreseeable future. I mean, the quite interesting thing, and the ironic thing actually, is Netanyahu has been rebounding in the polls recently, specifically following his attack against Hezbollah. So it's quite interesting how a year has changed the public's perception. We have to remember that before the October the 7th, there were thousands of Israelis that were protesting against Netanyahu's proposed reforms for the judiciary. You had loads of IDF reservists that actually went on strike to oppose him. So he was really not, he was persona non grata in public opinion, but now he seems to be rebounding in the polls. Obviously, it's not enough for him to make a political comeback, but the criticism that he is potentially prolonging this conflict in Gaza and deliberately delaying some sort of long-term plan for the region because it cannot go on as it is, it seems to hold a lot of weight, and that's what really concerns me, because this, as the situation currently stands, it's unsustainable on all sides. In the space of a few months, Israel has lost $2 billion worth of capital in capital flight from people actually just moving their money to foreign banks because they don't see the situation stabilizing anytime soon. And of course, the hostages still being stuck in Gaza is an awful situation. I just think, by and large, most people were hoping for more progress a year on, and it seems like things have only got worse. And the nightmare scenarios, they're only going to get worse from now. And we could potentially be looking at regional conflict, full-out regional conflict.
And just bear with us, because we're getting some live pictures now, or latest pictures rather, from Beirut, because attacks are continuing there. We can see that's the latest images that we're getting, yet more explosions. We saw several explosions last night as well, which a Lebanese news agency has said was the worst night of the attacks so far in the fight between Hezbollah and Israel. So those are the latest pictures from Beirut. A reminder, as if we needed any, that now Israel is fighting a war on many fronts. Let me just bring the front page of the Financial Times up. And it says, a year on, Israel marks the first anniversary of the heinous Hamas attack that sparked the war. And that's a memorial, the picture there, memorial in Jerusalem for the victims of October 7th. And Christina, before coming to you, again, the Telegraph. And here it says, stand behind us. Netanyahu warns the West. What are they saying here specifically?
Well, he's been speaking to Emmanuel Macron, who said that France was going to start limiting its arms deliveries to Israel. And I don't know what he said exactly to Macron, because Macron seems to have changed his mind. Now, obviously, the 7th of October, or the eve of the 7th of October, is a tough time for anyone in the West to start reducing their arms deliveries to Israel, because obviously it's an incredibly emotive anniversary, and I'm afraid one that Netanyahu will be leveraging in any way he can. I think that most leaders in the West are now thinking this is well out of control. Biden, unfortunately, appears to be too weak to do anything. It's not quite clear why he's 3 weeks
from an election as well.
The man is gaga. I mean, when he was asked whether he knew about the ground invasion into Lebanon, he seemed completely startled, like he had no idea, where he was. So this is not someone who's even cognizant of the current situation. But I think on your point, it really is stand by Israel, fine. But for many in the West, the impression is, OK, is there any sort of give and take going on here? Because the Americans were informed of the IDF's planned ground invasion into Lebanon. For a country that gives Israel, I think, $3 or $4 billion worth of military assistance, you would expect a bit more dialogue than to inform. Now, maybe it's because of how they see Biden. They see him as an ineffective leader. Maybe they didn't want his input. OK, that's fine. But many in the West don't feel like this situation is in control. In fact, it seems out of control, and every day we're inching closer and closer towards World War III. And that's something that the West is not willing to be dragged into under any circumstances, no matter how friendly Israel's allies are to it.
I'm going to have to leave it there because, of course, we could talk about it for much, much longer. Let's take a look at another story that is making all the front pages as well. Let's start with the FT. So front page of the Financial Times, Gray forced out as Starmer moves to get grip on number 10. So this is Sue Gray that, stood down, was pushed, however you want to see it, because she feared becoming a distraction.
Well, she didn't resign, did she? I mean, resign in inverted commas. She was given an opportunity to exit gracefully. And yes, Starmer has finally taken some action. I'm afraid he has looked very weak week in the past 3 months, because it's been a total mess at Downing Street. And the conference, which should have been such a triumphant occasion after 14 years out of power, was a mess. And all the scandal, I'm not sure how much of a scandal it was, but it looked terrible in terms of expenses and suits and glasses and free tickets and all the rest of it. And somebody clearly didn't have a grip on it. And it looks as if, well, Sue Gray was the Chief of Staff, so clearly she needed to take responsibility. It remains to be seen. Morgan McSweeney will be taking on her role. He's not experienced in government. He's meant to be more of a political operator. It remains to be seen whether someone gets a grip. Now, I really hope they do, because I want this Labour government to succeed, but I have to say they've made a pretty appalling start.
And so let's just scroll through some front pages before I come to you. So the Metro front page there, that's the pun title, A Bad Grey at the Office, Keir. And then The Eye, Grey ousted in Downing Street, power struggles. That's front page of The Eye. And The Express make their views very clear. Starmer Chief Sue Gray exits his sinking ship. Is it a sinking ship?
Well, I mean, that's the main concern, because really all of this is a reflection of Keir Starmer's leadership, as opposed to sort of the petty infighting, or whether, you know, some of his aides were happy that Sue Gray was earning more money than him, which I don't actually think was much of a problem. She could very well be good enough to earn more than the Prime Minister. She's a very experienced civil servant. However, it's the fact that this sort of petty infighting has been able to destabilise his leadership. Is he someone that is equipped to call the shots? One of the things that I'm sure Labour is keeping their eyes on are the polls, because once you actually calcify low poll ratings, it's really hard to turn that ship around, and that's something that the Tories learnt the very hard way.
And I have to leave it there. Coming up, the number of migrant arrivals across the Channel hits the highest daily total in nearly 2 years. We'll be discussing that next.
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours, and we are going to take it back.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power. Now, freedom! There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes, torrential rain and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued with its ultimatum to the people of Ashkelon, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
Welcome back. You're watching the press preview with me once again, the journalist and author Christina Patterson and the writer and broadcaster Esther Kreku. Okay, let's go to the front page of The Telegraph, a story that they've got here. More illegal migrants in UK than anywhere else in Europe. Esther, what's the story? What are they saying?
So we have about 745,000 illegal immigrants, according to this latest study, as opposed to France's 300,000. So we have more than double that of France and that of Germany as well. And I suspect, I mean, there are a couple of reasons for this. One is actually our lack of ID cards. So we live in such a high-trust society that it's a lot easier to do things in this country without ID cards. I mean, you can have like a driver's license, but we don't have an official ID card. So it's a lot easier just to function in society without...
It's illegal to go around without your ID card.
Exactly. But also another thing is, actually industries that hire a lot of illegal workers. We have the fewest number of regulators per worker in many industries in this country. So, for example, the care industry, it's a lot easier to work as an illegal migrant because there's such few regulators. And it's these kinds of things that have compounded to make it actually quite a favourable environment for people who are here illegally to work and thrive. But the ID cards is an interesting one because when Tony Blair tried to introduce it, he really didn't get very far. I mean, I think the last real attempt was sometime in 2011 when the scheme kind of carried on to Cameron's government, and then that lost funding as well, so it never really picked up. But this idea that people can move through Britain and sort of sneak into the underbelly of society without having some form of identification is a real problem.
Christina, briefly?
Yeah, I've never understood the opposition to ID cards. There's this kind of, I remember people like Marc Francois talking about a kind of papers, please society, as if that was going to turn it into the Soviet Union. I think it's a no-brainer. If you want to control, I mean, the complicated palaver that, various, like the Tories, the Rwanda scheme and so on, the things that they are having to dream up in order to control this, when ID cards would go a very long way to sorting it out. But also, it has to be said that the reason there are 740,000 illegal migrants in the UK, if that's an accurate number, is because the Tories have mismanaged it for 14 years. Whose fault do they think it is? Who's been in power for 14 years? They were in no way on top of illegal migration, and they weren't processing people in time, so it's their mess. They should own it.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's an interesting... Sorry,
we have 90 seconds. I just want to look at another story, which is The Express. Page 2, crop of The Express. Chancellor risks triggering sharp interest rate rise, which is going to make the heart sink of many a mortgage holder. Christina.
Yeah, that is makes my heart sink as well. An official modelling exercise by the Treasury apparently indicates that Rachel Reeves' plans to change fiscal rules so she can borrow more could trigger a sharp interest rate rise. Let's hope it doesn't. I mean, she is pretty boxed in at the moment, and if she sticks to the fiscal rules, then it seems that there is almost no money to do anything. But she seems to be between the devil and the deep blue sea at the moment, so let's just hope this is wrong.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing is £50 billion of extra government spending is still borrowing. That's the thing that, no one wants to say. She's still going to borrow more money. And that's the kind of thing that's going to spook the markets. So, she is stuck between a rock and a hard place. Most people would turn to actually encouraging private business and actually growing the economy as opposed to, trying to borrow your way out of this crisis. But again, we're in such desperate need of investment in public infrastructure and services that she may have to do this. It just depends on how she's able to calm the markets and say, look, there's a long-term strategy here.
Esther, Christina, thank you so much. We'll see you again in the next hour to go through the papers a little bit more. Now, let's take a look at the weather. Now, we're in for an unsettled few days with showers and longer spells of rain moving through. There'll be quite a mild start tomorrow. Much of Ireland, Northern Ireland and eastern England will be fine, but northern Scotland will be wet, while southern and western Britain will see a scattering of showers. The morning looks breezy with prolonged rain over northern Scotland becoming increasingly confined to the far north. Elsewhere, most parts will keep some good sunny spells, but sometimes heavy and possibly thundery showers will develop widely. It'll be a bit warmer in the south, cooler in the north. There'll be little change through the afternoon, but the southwest will see more general heavy, showery rain moving in. The rest of Britain will see showers becoming more isolated later. Now, Tuesday will bring sunny spells and showers to most parts again, and more general rain to southern and central Scotland and the far north. It will be cooler in the north and windy in the southeast and near northwestern coasts. Wednesday will be unsettled and chilly in the north. Coming up next on Sky News at 11, we'll have all the latest developments from the Middle East as Israel prepares to mark 1 year since the October the 7th Hamas attacks.